There's something about autumn. The air cools, the trees change, and the light softens. The world feels quieter, more pensive, where every day seems to stretch into something more reflective. The days begin to slow down, as if time itself wants to pause and take a breath. It's like every day magically turns into a weird version of yet another Sunday. A feeling of isolation creeps in during autumn, though it's not the kind that burdens me. It's more like a conscious solitude. It's comfortable, peaceful, and inviting. It's a time for reflection, a space between. There is no rush, no urgency.
You'll find something serene about being out in nature all by yourself. At least I do. Of course, I cannot speak for everyone, but to me, the silence out here isn't oppressive at all. It's like a moment of calm between the noise of everyday life. You feel both alone and connected at once. In tune with something larger than yourself. You become more attuned to the details. Just solitude, stillness, and the weight of the season. Like the weekend being the in-between of the week, autumn is an in-between of the year. The summer heat is slowly fading, the days are getting shorter, and the cold of winter and the stress of Christmas is just around the corner. Autumn embodies this kind of calm melancholy. The world around you slows down, and we are invited to look inward.
When Spike Jonze first screened her in the fall of 2013, the reactions were overwhelmingly personal and emotional. Viewers reflected on their own relationships, their experiences with love, and the isolation they felt. Nearly a decade later, Her remains a profound exploration of love, solitude, and what it means to connect in an age defined by technology. It's truly a work of art about love in our modern world. Does technology make us more lonely? Is the rise of artificial intelligence truly harmful to our mental health and well-being? We can never say for certain. Although it may influence and modify our basic human needs, it will never truly change them. Isolation becomes something more than just being alone. It transforms into a kind of existential solitude. Theodore, surrounded by people and technology, feels more isolated than ever. The connection he craves isn't with others, but with something deeper within himself, and that's where the film speaks to me, because, like Autumn, it's not about loneliness. It's about the space you carve out for yourself. A moment to sit with your own thoughts, your own feelings, and just be. Her is not only a movie about love. It's a movie about humanity, about soul, and how we all grow apart, more disconnected in a world that is more connected than ever before.
Theodore lives in a world that feels eerily close to ours. It's a world that is hyper-connected by technology, yet deeply isolating. Despite spending his days writing intimate letters for strangers, he's emotionally adrift. He's constantly surrounded by people, but never truly connects with any of them.
The more accessible the communication becomes, the more distant and hollow these connections feel. Her challenges how we think about loneliness. It's not just about being physically alone, it's the absence of real, meaningful connection. Theodore feels this lack of connection especially after his separation from Catherine, his ex-wife. He holds onto those memories of their relationship, scenes from the past that keep haunting him in the moments of loneliness. Memories that only make it harder for him to move on with his life. Even the friendship he has with Amy, as warm as it is, lacks the emotional depth he's searching for.
Console me.
Technology becomes both a remedy and a source of Theodore's loneliness.
You only have so much energy, and to divide yourself between doing what it is that you have to do and then doing what you love, it's so important to prioritize.
I can't even prioritize between video games and internet porn.
I would laugh if that weren't true.
See you guys.
His relationship with his AI girlfriend Samantha fills the emotional void he feels, but this connection, while fulfilling on the surface, raises deeper questions about the authenticity of it all. Can an artificial being, no matter how advanced, truly understand and correspond to human emotion? The film suggests that while Samantha helps Theodore overcome his loneliness, this relationship lacks the grounding in physical lived experience that makes human connections complete. Technology, while convenient, cannot replace the messiness and the unpredictability and the imperfection of human intimacy.
Technology, and the internet in particular, has obliterated emotional boundaries. We are all constantly unified and accessible in a way that was nearly impossible before. Every aspect of your life is slowly becoming more and more transparent. You meet someone online who finds your profile interesting or likes the way you present yourself, and ultimately, intimacy and sexuality in particular has become almost transactional.
Put a chat room standard search.
The following are adult female, can't sleep, and want to have some fun.
Oh, I had a really bad day at work and I can't sleep. Is there anybody out there that can talk?
Next.
Hi, I just want you to tear me apart. I really do.
Next.
Hi, I'm here alone and I can't sleep. Who's out there to share this bed with me?
Send message.
If we look at the film's setting, we see a theme, a pattern contrasting the artificial world of technology with the natural environment. The city where Theodore lives is sleek, clean, and dominated by technology. People are often seen walking alone, distracted by their devices, disconnected from each other, but focused entirely on their screens. And despite the omnipresence of technology that is meant to connect people, everyone is just wandering around, deeply immersed in their own little worlds. Further on in the movie, there's a scene where Theodore is taking a trip out into the mountains, where he and Samantha experience a sort of virtual togetherness. In this natural environment, Theodore seems to experience a moment of peace and clarity that contrasts sharply with the sterile and tech-dominated urban spaces. Nature becomes a sort of refuge, a space where Theodore can confront his emotions without the interference of technology. These contrasting environments show us something important. Technology, even though it's meant to bring us together, often pushes us further apart, both from nature and from each other.
The natural scenes in the film, though, they remind us to unplug, to reconnect with something real, something simple, to step outside and, in other words, to touch grass. To be honest, this is my favorite season of the year. It's the season between growth and decay, a liminal space where we exist in the present but can't help but feel the weight of what's passing. Autumn, like her, is a season for introspection. It pulls you into the present, the real world. It forces you to slow down and invites you to explore the silence around you. And if you truly pay attention, you start to notice things you didn't before. Just like Theodore begins to see this world differently through his relationship with Samantha. This reflective nature of autumn mirrors Heidegger's concept of Dasein, or being there, where we confront our own existence in a way that moves beyond the everyday distractions. But we will get to that in a bit.
There's a beauty in solitude, a peace that comes from embracing stillness, even if it feels empty at first. However, it's in that emptiness that you find clarity, like a Sunday where you have nothing to do but simply exist. Her balances the thin line between loneliness and solitude. Loneliness as an experience of emotional disconnection, something we often feel even when we are surrounded by others. And solitude, a deliberate embrace of one's own company, a space where introspection and growth can happen. For Theodore, the journey from loneliness to solitude is deeply intertwined with his struggle for emotional authenticity. In our world of technology, it is easy to lose that sense of balance. Our devices constantly try to pull us into a digital reality, into a stream of updates, notifications, and information. We live in a space dominated by the seen, the measurable, the quantifiable. But what about the unseen? What about the subtlety of a moment disconnected from technology? Her taps into what it feels like to live in a world where we are more connected than ever, but real, meaningful relationships still feel out of reach. The film suggests that even though we often look to technology to fill those gaps, true emotional connection comes when we embrace solitude and allow ourselves to be vulnerable. Her invites us to reflect on how we engage with loneliness and solitude in our own lives. It poses the question, are we running from loneliness by seeking superficial connections? Or are we able to embrace solitude as a path to emotional fulfillment? The film suggests that only by facing our inner turmoil head-on, we can find the clarity to navigate our most complex and meaningful relationships. There's a kind of warmth to Autumn's isolation, a sense that being alone doesn't mean feeling alone. It's an invitation to sit with your thoughts without the pressure of the world outside. In the forest, surrounded by trees shedding their leaves, you're reminded that everything is in flux. And yet there's a calm in this change. It feels like a quiet pause before winter comes. The air is crisp, the trees shed their leaves, and we're reminded that change is inevitable. We step outside and feel the shift. It's the end of one thing and the beginning of something else. The world is preparing for winter, but there's no rush. It's a slow goodbye to summer and a time to linger. Contrasting with loneliness, solitude in her is presented as a space for self-discovery. Throughout the film, Theodore transitions from a man haunted by his past to someone who finds peace in the present. Solitude, unlike loneliness, is an intentional state, a conscious choice to be alone. It allows Theodore to reflect on his relationships, his emotional needs, and ultimately, himself. Theodore's relationship with Samantha provides a temporary solution to his loneliness. Technology, no matter how sophisticated, cannot fully replace the depth of human intimacy. The convenience of AI is appealing, but it also traps Theodore in a space of suggested emotional safety, a controlled environment where he doesn't have to confront the challenges of vulnerability.
Oh, you seem really good.
Thanks. I am. At least I'm doing better. Yeah, she's been really good for me, it's good to be with somebody that's excited about life. It's a real, No, I mean, I wasn't in such a good place myself, and in that way, it's been nice.
I feel like you always wanted me to be this light, happy, bouncy, everything's fine, LA wife, and that's just not me.
I didn't want that.
This mirrors the way that technology in the film and in our world merely provides a surface-level connection that lacks the depth of in-person interaction. Theodore, like many of us, finds it easier to rely on these mediated relationships, rather than face the discomfort of real human connection.
So what's she like?
Well, her name's Samantha, and she's an operating system. She's really complex and interesting.
Wait.
And it's only been a few...
I'm sorry. You're dating your computer?
No, she's not just a computer. She's her own person. She doesn't just do whatever I say.
I didn't say that. But it does make me very sad that you can't handle real emotions, Theodore.
They are real emotions. How would you know
What? Say it.
We need to consider how our own use of technology might be preventing us from forming deeper and more meaningful relationships. Theodore's story shows us the real difference between loneliness and solitude. Loneliness is that hollow feeling of disconnection, and it follows him through much of the film. But when he chooses solitude, when he decides to sit with his feelings and reflect, he finds clarity. We can't just run from loneliness. We need to face it, learn from it, and ultimately, we need to grow through it. As Theodore reconnects with Amy in the final moments, the film leaves us with a simple yet profound message. The deeper connections we crave aren't found in artificial relationships, but in the messy and imperfect and human relationships we form with others, and most importantly, we form with ourselves. In Being and Time, Heidegger asks the fundamental question, what does it mean to exist? He focuses on the concept of Dasein, or literally translated the being there, basically how humans are the only creatures who can reflect on their own existence, but Heidegger believed that most of us don't think about this enough. We move through life, caught in the everyday routine without asking deeper questions about what it is or what it means to truly be. His philosophy urges us to wake up, to stop taking existence for granted, and to explore what it really means to live authentically in the world. Being is fundamentally temporal. Heidegger views time as an essential part of existence. Human beings are constantly projecting themselves into the future. They're reflecting on the past and they're navigating the present. He distinguishes between living authentically and inauthentically. Inauthenticity arises when Dasein lives according to societal norms, following the expectations of others without reflecting on its own potential for individual existence. Authenticity, on the other hand, is achieved when Dasein confronts its own finitude and embraces its freedom to create its own meaning. In this sense, authenticity means living a life true to one's own possibilities rather than conforming to external pressures. However, focusing too heavily on one's own existence bears another set of problems. Theodor Adorno argues that the notion of authenticity, which is central to Heidegger's work, becomes a form of empty rhetoric or jargon. In his work, The Jargon of Authenticity, Adorno critiques the way this philosophical jargon creates an illusion of depth, clarity, and truth, while often obscuring reality and reinforcing ideological structures. This language of authenticity, rather than liberating the individual, becomes a tool of manipulation, and instead of leading to true individuality or autonomy, it reinforces conformism by giving the appearance of a higher understanding, which is actually disconnected from real social conditions. For Adorno, the existentialist emphasis on individual freedom and authenticity serves ideological purposes. He sees it as aligned with the capitalist system because it distracts individuals from addressing systemic problems by focusing on personal existential concerns. Instead of fostering true emancipation, the jargon of authenticity limits critique of society and systemic injustices. It is packaged and sold as a form of self-realization, which ultimately supports the status quo. He suggests that existentialist ideas are marketed to people as a way to deal with the alienation and disillusionment produced by our modern capitalist society, but without addressing the root causes of that alienation. Sometimes we need to resist time. We cling to the remnants of rest before the demands of the week return. In autumn, we do the same. We notice how the days grow shorter, how the sun sets earlier, and yet we savor each golden afternoon, as if by holding on, we can stop the time from slipping away. Beyond the comfort of fall, there is something else, something subtler. After the rains clear out, everything looks crisper. The colors of the leaves, the texture of the bark, even the sound of the wind through the trees becomes more defined. It's like the earth has been cleansed, and in that clarity, we too find perspective. Life is tinged with a bitter sweetness, a recognition that this moment of peace is fleeting. The trees will soon be bare, and the days colder, and before long, winter will arrive. We need to remind ourselves of the impermanence of things, appreciate what's here now because it won't last forever. But rather than rushing to the next season or the next day, autumn asks us to be still for a moment and to embrace the pause. Autumn doesn't just ask for reflection, it clears the path for it, like a shower washing away the dirt and grime. In a world driven by constant demands for productivity and self-improvement, Adorno reminds us that these ideals often serve a system that keeps us distracted from larger societal issues. The pressure to retreat inward, to seek personal solace, can risk becoming a form of escape, a way to avoid confronting the realities that shape our collective experience. Yet, this doesn't mean that we must completely forsake our own need for rest. It's important to carve out moments of stillness, to simply be, while also recognizing that our individual reflection cannot be divorced from the broader social context. In my opinion, I believe that both are necessary: time to ourselves and time to look critically at the world we live in. Personal reflection isn't just about retreating into our own minds, it should help us see the bigger picture, the systems and structures that shape our lives. The quiet moments we seek shouldn't just comfort us, they should push us to think more deeply about the world and our place in it. It's a season of transition, a time to reflect, to prepare, and to rest. It's a moment where we can pause, if only for a little while, before life moves on again, and perhaps eventually we can learn to appreciate the quiet transitions in life, the spaces between action. And as the world around us moves faster, more connected, and more driven by technology, I think it's important to remember this. In these moments of stillness, we find something we can't get from a screen, an app, a text message, or even a video, only from within ourselves. Thank you for watching.